All right, y'all. Just wanted to record a little video. I am out and about right now because it's still too hot, but I am enjoying this air conditioning in my car. So, yeah, I wanted to kind of weigh in on this whole Nick Cannon thing and cancel culture and stuff like that, and just kind of share some of my thoughts on what I've been noticing on social media. And everybody has a different reaction to it, and but I think it's important that we also keep some perspective here too. I think that there are certain things that we don't want to forget as we're looking at this situation, as well as a lot of others that we've seen over the past few months here. And I think that we get so reactionary a lot of the times on the right, and I'm guilty of it too. Well, we all do it. A lot of times when we see the left acting up or doing something that's ridiculous or destructive, we always want to react to that. And a lot of that is okay. I mean, because we should be repudiating the things that they do, that at least the things that they do that are wrong. But I think sometimes we do a little bit of damage to ourselves when we're doing this, especially when we forget certain principles that we hold to. So, first, just to comment on Cannon. I mean, those comments were trash, garbage. I'm not going to justify anything of what he said. The whole thing with the whole being the real Hebrews and stuff like that, I don't really understand much. I don't really understand where he was coming from on that, and I don't think he's clarified yet. So that could be something different than what we think it is. But some of those other comments were just unequivocally bigoted against Jews, but also against white people. And if you follow me, you know that if a white conservative had said something like that about black people, I would have called it out. I would have been quick. I've been the first one in line doing it. So in this case, same thing. I'm going to maintain that principle. I'm going to maintain that consistency. What Nick Cannon said about white people was garbage, implying that the color of their skin or the lack of melanin or that they're somehow genetically predisposed to brutal type behavior is asinine. We see savagery over the course of human history. We've seen savagery being perpetrated by white people, but also by black people, by Asians, Hispanics. There is no race or culture that has ever existed that hasn't at some point engaged in savagery. All cultures, Hebrew culture, Jewish culture. If you read the Bible, you can see some of the things that the Hebrews did back in those days. So to imply that it's just one culture really engaging in this is ridiculous, and the implication that it's because of their genetics is also just as asinine, or because of their skin color. So yeah, I have no respect for those comments. Those are bigoted, and he's doubling down on it. I follow the 48-hour rule with Scott Adams. So, they have 48 hours after it comes to light to either clarify or apologize or double down, and he basically just doubled down on it. So he made that bet, at least with the criticism that he's getting. And does he deserve it? Yeah, he deserves it. But Viacom fired him, and that's a point of contention that I'm seeing on both on the left and the right, really. I mean, but I think most people know that he kind of caused that to happen to himself. But the cancel culture discussion came up. I mean, a lot of people were saying, oh, well, he shouldn't have been fired. He shouldn't, for what he said. He should get ridiculed. He should get criticized, but he shouldn't lose his job. And I do understand that, because cancel culture is dangerous, and we've seen what it's been doing to people, to individuals, and also to companies as well. But I do want to be careful with this. I mean, especially on the right. I mean, when Colin Kaepernick was having his issues and he wasn't able to get onto a team, what were we saying on the right? Well, he made that bet. Free speech. We value free speech, not just in the sense that we believe that the government shouldn't enforce speech. Like, nobody's calling for the government to silence Nick Cannon or Colin Kaepernick in this case. But we do like to abide by the spirit of the First Amendment, the spirit of free speech, in that while we already accept that we're not going to use the government to silence people, we also should abide by that in our own personal lives. And that's kind of what the spirit of that principle is. So we like the idea that we can have a society where people can say what they want without society also punishing them. So that does make sense, and I think that in the vast majority of cases that is applicable. But like I said, going back to Kaepernick, what did we say when Kaepernick couldn't get signed to a team? We said, well, he did something that was controversial. Teams are businesses, basically, and they don't want somebody on their team who's going to cost them money or who's going to damage their brand. So we excused it in that case. But fast forward to Nick Cannon, now we're saying that he said these things about Jews and white people, and we're doing the whole cancel culture thing. And this is where I'm getting into how we just tend to react to the left. Right now, it seems like we're moving towards labeling anything as cancel culture. And with Colin Kaepernick, we didn't. And I would agree with that. He made his bed. I mean, he chose to do that. And when you make a decision, there's going to be a consequence, positive or negative. So in Nick Cannon's case, he made a decision. Maybe he thought it would never come up. Maybe he didn't think that anybody would come down on him for it, but it did. It happened. And Viacom is making a decision. They're saying, well, this guy might cost us money. I mean, that's what corporations are for. They're supposed to make revenue. They're supposed to make profit. And if Nick Cannon's going to get in the way of them doing that, they're going to cut ties. So this is kind of where we would say, well, maybe we shouldn't have the type of society that would cause a company like Viacom to lose money or to have their brand damaged because one of their employees or associates said some stupid crap. I tend to agree with that, again, to a certain extent, but I think, again, we have to be careful about just labeling everything cancel culture, because while we do value freedom of speech, we also value freedom of association. Now, I know that freedom of association is not enshrined in the Constitution, but there have been cases that have, at the Supreme Court level, that have established freedom of association. So, to give you an example, if I have a company and I, hire, 20 employees, one of them goes out and makes horrible comments about black people, calls us the N-words and says he hates us. That might sound a little familiar because, we had that Fox News guy, the head writer for Tucker Carlson. He got popped for that. But let's say I was my company. Would you, as a follower of mine, would you really be against me firing that person? Because I'll tell you right now, I would fire his ass. Like, if I had an employee that did something like that, yep, he's gone. I do not want to associate with that. And I know that the government can't force me to, but I don't want to live in a society where the culture would try to pressure me to associate with this person just because they don't want cancel culture. Does that make sense? Because the thing is people should have the right to say what they want to say, but people and businesses should also have the right to associate with people that they want to associate with. And as a culture, I don't believe that it's appropriate to pressure them into associating with somebody who has abhorrent views. It would be one thing if my employee just had a political view that was different from mine. I would understand the anger then. Like, say, if he believed more like in open borders, and I don't. First off, I wouldn't fire somebody for that. But if I did, I would understand that reaction more. Now you can start talking a little bit about cancel culture, because to me, cancel culture isn't just about dealing with people who legitimately said some jacked up stuff. It also deals with situations where what they said may not have been that bad, or situations where it may have been that bad, but it was 10 years ago. So come on, we don't need to cancel people for what they said 10 years ago. Now, I believe in Nick Cannon's case, this was about a year ago. I think this interview was done last year, so still pretty recent. And on top of that, he doubled down on it. So I understand why people might react that way. But again, I think it's just important that we don't sacrifice one freedom for another. We shouldn't sacrifice our freedom of association for I think a misguided view of the spirit of free speech. I think cancel culture is very, very prevalent right now, and I think that there is some of it involved in what Nick Cannon said. But even without cancel culture, if he had said this, let's say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I mean, people back then, if somebody made a really racist remark, they were fired. That's just the way it was. So that hasn't really changed, but now we have, in addition to that, a frantic, hysterical cancel culture that wants to cancel anybody who voices a political view that doesn't line up, in this case, or line up, not in this case, but does not line up with progressivism. So that's the battle that we need to fight. We need to fight back when it's legitimately unfair. In this case, Nick Cannon said some stuff that could damage Viacom. I mean, that there's really no way around that. If Viacom had hired, like, I don't know, like a David Duke type of person, but they didn't know it, and the guy went out and said some stuff, they shouldn't have to associate him with them. Again, if I had my own company and an employee went out publicly and bashed my company, but he works for me, I'm sorry, you got to go. You can do that, but there are consequences for what you do. Now, sometimes the consequences don't line up, and that's really where we get into cancel culture. Because if you have like a 10-year-old tweet and you've completely changed from that, and people want to cancel you, that punishment does not fit the crime. Basically, it's basically an authoritarian response designed to provoke fear among people who may have said some things that the left doesn't like, or might have views that the left doesn't like. So that's what we need to be fighting. But if it's a case where it's legitimately damaging to the employer, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not mad at Viacom for firing him. Now, I know that some people think that they shouldn't have, and I respect that view. If Viacom had said that they wanted to keep him, I wouldn't have cared about that either. But in that case, they have the freedom to make that decision. Just like I would hope that you would give that same respect to me. I would give it to you. If you had your own company, or like I say, like a nonprofit organization, and you had an associate who had views that you don't want to be associated with, then cut ties. Society should not apply pressure on you to associate with somebody who you don't want to associate with. And I think that's okay. So I think we have to find the balance between fighting cancel culture and also maintaining the freedoms that we value, freedom of speech and freedom of association. Otherwise, this whole thing could turn into something much worse. So yeah, I just wanted to leave you with that. I just wanted to weigh in on that. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to try to be trying to do more YouTube videos like this. So definitely subscribe, comment, hit that little bell, and I will holler at you later.